Hello, everyone, and welcome to Across the Pond WNBA. I am Kirsten Clark from the ATP Liberty podcast, and I'm joined today by Michelle.
Hey guys, this is Michelle. Y'all can call me Shell Snow, and we are glad to be back. James has been replaced by our new president, Kirsten Clark. We got her coming in today. I'm kidding. James is still here. We just got to show some love, give her a chance to host the show. Before we jump into the show, we want to make sure you guys know that we now have the football side of things. And being an American, football means two different things to us. We're talking about the NWSL podcast now that will cover a lot of things going on over in the UK and other places in Europe. So stay tuned. Make sure you check out our website, ATP Sports Network, on Instagram. And you can learn more about how to follow the NWSL podcast as well as the Liberty podcast as well. The Vegas podcast on the WNBA side, and then the WNBA podcast that we're doing right now. Y'all get ready. Put your seatbelts on. We're going to have a fun and enjoyable show.
Yeah, so first thing on the agenda today is talking about the superstar that is Jewell Lloyd. So Jewell Lloyd has been taking over this season in Seattle. She's currently standing at the points per game leader in the league at 24.3 points per game. She's been having a phenomenal season. I mean, this season her points per game have completely risen in comparison to all of her previous seasons, and she was already such a well-respected player in the league to now come into this new season where they've lost a few players, but she is just taking that team on her shoulders and is absolutely just shooting lights out.
Man, she to me is the epitome of the cliche and the saying, don't get ready, stay ready. You lose a Sue Bird, then you have Brianna jump over to New York. And Jewell Lloyd, you're right. She's one of the players that we've been speaking about and talking about for years. She's one of the players we said has an opportunity to break the scoring title as well, if people remember that
Mhm.
conversation a while back. Now you look at her scoring, and you have the next question is, how did you make that leap? Like how did you transition from she was basically a very key role player, but she's become the go-to player across the league that has tons of respect and now is positioned to kind of take over the league. I think you got to look back at some of the struggles she had, some of the mentors like Kobe. I think he was huge in her role, nicknaming her the Gold Mamba, even having, the gold sneakers that she rocked during one of the playoff games when she took off and talking about her struggles on and off the court mentally and how he forced her to kind of get through those things, even making her read the Wisnard series that he wrote, which is one of his first books, knowing she had dyslexia. I thought that was amazing to
Yeah.
force her to read a 700-page book in 1 month. And every time he would hit her up and she'd be like, I don't know if I could do this. I love that he only encouraged her and told her, you got to
Mhm.
push past this. You got to get to a better place, and that led to her getting life coaching. Now she's also looking at becoming a professional in pickleball. So she's challenging herself in multiple areas, but she's really focusing on the mental side of the game. And I think sometimes we think going in the gym and taking shots is enough. It's not. It's the mental side. And that's something Kobe really focused on. He was like, I don't worry about the last play or the next play. I just stay in the moment. How do you think that kind of has allowed her to blossom, seeing someone like him who has a completely different approach to the game than most people?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things we have also spoken about on our Liberty podcast this year is about the mental struggle and the mental power that you have to be a professional sports athlete across the field, like regardless of what sport you're playing. And we've spoken a lot about just how powerful these players are. To be in the league full stop, to be competing at that level and dedicating your life to just staying in shape, staying focused on your task at hand, staying committed to your physical and mental progress as a player so that you can go out there and perform. And I think it's a really great thing that mental health there's become so much more awareness about it in the past like
Yeah.
decade or so. And the only way that you can learn about it and that you can better yourself is by learning from other people. Sometimes it's really difficult to take the initiative yourself and think, okay, I need to change my mindset. I need to do XYZ and here's how I'm gonna do it. Like it's so difficult when you're already in that mental space where you're maybe struggling or you have a lot of pressure on you. It's so hard to have that perspective of I need to change something and this is how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
So it's role models like Kobe Bryant in this instance who really, really act as a great representation of what you can do and how you can deal with these struggles. To have someone like Kobe or a mentor of any form, you're so lucky to have someone like that who can help you because they offer a fresh perspective, an unbiased perspective, and sometimes a more realistic perspective because when you get so stressed out and stuck with your mental issues, it can be really difficult to see a way out of it or to think of a solution that doesn't end badly or that doesn't detriment you in some other way. So to have someone else, not to mention Kobe Bryant, who is one of the most arguably the most well respected basketball player of all time, to be there and to help you and give you that perspective and show you ways and push you and see in you that you have the power to get through it. It's like I can't even imagine how much that must have helped her. Like she's so fortunate and I'm sure there are many other people who have also helped her with that. But Kobe Bryant, just an amazing role model.
I mean, can you imagine that the story goes she was overseas and she received a text message from him saying, "Hey, this is Kobe. Love your game. Step it up. You need to own this ish."
Mhm.
Like letting her know, like you're even better than they're telling you are right now, and then challenging you to do the one thing that she said has been kind of that crutch since she was 12. She always wondered if it would affect relationships, how she played basketball,
Mhm.
how she learned, and now you have Kobe telling you to lean into that and
Mhm.
actually leverage it. And it leads to your mom being at stores and in speaking engagements, giving kids your numbers so that they can have that pro athlete to look up to. And she actually calls and talks to them as well and tells them, "Hey, I've been there." And I
Mhm.
think she's now becoming that version of Kobe in her own way and creating that, safe space for others who have dyslexia to know that, hey, this doesn't change who you are, how you learn, or what you want to be. It's just learning how to live with it and continue moving, which, like you said, with the mental health, it's important in this day and age so that you don't want to see a kid give up on their dreams too soon and for the wrong reasons. And that would definitely
Mhm.
be one.
Exactly, and like exactly what you're saying there, that Joel's now also reaching out to other people and helping them. It's just like a prime example of what we were just talking about, how the only way that you get through this sort of thing is by getting help from other people, and then that creates a domino effect where once you've been through that, you have this willingness and almost like you feel dedicated towards helping other people with that same issue because it's something that has kind of suffocated you for so long, and just the thought of someone else going through that, like it, I can only imagine it would push you to want to help others, and that is the way that you kind of create a change in perspective overall to sport and to life in general, is when everyone plays their part, they get through it, and you help other people. And I just think we're creating more role models. Jill's such a role model, and it's nice to expand that family.
100%. I love how we started off that segment. And I am really interested to see, like, if outside of Jewell Lloyd, because we know that the way she's scoring right now, she definitely can reach that scoring title. Is there any other players that you think on the brink of that as well that we can kind of watch out for?
Um, yes, I think we know who I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
So I have been keeping a very close eye this season on Brianna Stewart.
Yes.
Me and Stacia had this conversation the other week about like Aja Wilson versus Brianna Stewart, and I know both of them are putting up such superstar, as expected, right? Such superstar stats this season, and I'm gonna be completely biased and say, like, I've been watching Brianna Stewart. She has been performing, she's had 3 40-point games this season, almost a fourth, and now that 3 40-point games is a WNBA record. So for her to be 38 points, she was 2 points away
Mm,
from getting a fourth. She's just, like, she's a different breed. And she is another player who, I mean, she was at Seattle. She was such a key role player for that team. She has now moved to join the Liberty, who are a
mhm.
star-studded team to play along such other superstars. Like the full starting five is just superstar, superstar, superstar. It's insane. Yet she's putting up some of the best numbers that she has ever put up in her career. She's breaking records left, right, and center. She is just absolutely dominating, and the way she is integrated into this team and that the team have all integrated around each other has just like it's been like watching art. Like this whole season, I've loved it.
That leads me to another question. I think one of the beautiful things about basketball across the world globally is for a moment we saw like the superstar teams leading and dominating, and I think it's transitioning a little bit
Mhm.
back to where teams are kind of breaking up and going in different places and showing just how great they are individually as well, but focusing, I see teams and GMs focusing more on the key pieces that they put around them. It can't necessarily be 3 huge stars. It has to be the right players in the right situations. I think New York got it right in terms of how to make that mixture to where everyone understands, like, okay, this might be Ionescu's team. We got Courtney Vandersloot, we got Mama Steph. You got the right pieces in the right places where nobody's trying to do too much. Everyone understands their role. And I believe Sandy's done a great job of making sure people know their role explicitly. This is exactly what we need you to do. If you don't do this, we don't win. So make sure you understand your importance around this nucleus, but still being able to put those teams together, but in a way where it makes more sense. And I feel like New York has probably gotten that formula right.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to sum it up. With the Liberty this season, I was apprehensive when I saw the trade results, if I'm completely honest with you, to see so many superstars coming together, superstars who were kind of the key players in their team.
Yeah.
Um and my initial thought was, who's gonna be the star in this team? I can't pick who the star is gonna be. Like, how is this all gonna work out? And it's just it's exactly how you've put it. Like they've managed to get the right players in the right positions. Everyone knows their role on the team. And they've managed to work themselves so well together where there's not really one star on the team. It's like every game there's one player who performs exceptionally well, but it's never the same player every single game. We had for example, Jonquel. Jonquel
Yes.
was one of our kind of prime examples of this season, where pre All Star break, if you've listened or heard the episodes, me and Stacia have been talking about Jonquel. Like, she was just MVP. She's this, and we just felt like we weren't getting everything out of Jonquel that she's capable of doing. Post All Star, she's come back from she had a bit of struggle with her injuries and everything, and she has been that prime example of understanding her role on the team now, where I think she took a little bit of time to transition, and now she's putting up great numbers, she's dominating in rebounds, and she has been that key that has helped us to beat Vegas, who, when we played them at the start of the season, Jonquel didn't have a good game. She didn't fully understand her role on the team, and we got absolutely annihilated. And specifically on rebounds, we got absolutely killed. So her is a great example of just understanding her role on the team, taking the time to integrate, and now she's found her footing, and now she's performing exceptionally well. Um, and we've had games as well where we've had like 5 game streaks where in those 5 games there has been a different leading scorer in every single game. So it's just been really amazing to see the way that they have integrated, and even with, for example, the Chicago game, we had Sabrina out. Sabrina is this incredible player and one of the biggest names in the league right now. She wasn't playing. We had Marine Johannes come and step in, and she stepped right up to the plate. And this is the third or fourth time she's done that this season. She's always available to come and fill in. She's always available and ready, and she doesn't disappoint. And it's just such an advantage and just a testament to Sandy's coaching as well, to see that, the depth of this team and the way that the players both know their roles and then know how to step up when they're needed and in what way. And it's just been such a joy to follow them this season.
It's been a joy to watch them because I honestly had the same apprehension that you did. I said these are some great moves. This team's going to be really good, but I did think it would take another year or two for them to kind of figure out their identity and to get where they were because like I said, there's such a mesh of great players and sometimes it takes time for people to understand their roles and to figure out where they fit in. That's why I said I have to give kudos to the owner and the GM and the coach on just making sure people knew from day one where they start, where what they were and who they were on that team. JJ is one that I've been talking about for years now, and I've told people, I'm telling y'all, she's a player that does not get the attention she deserves. She's an MVP. She wasn't in the biggest media market, and now she's in New York. Give her time and watch what happens. She's a phenomenal post player. I think she's unstoppable. And I think being on this team, her going through that transition, fighting through the injuries and figuring out who she was, she's going to be another one that I think is going to skyrocket like a Jewell Lloyd and kind of show off in terms of what she's able to do. But we're going to flip it a little bit. You
Mhm.
brought up one of this is turning to the Liberty podcast today.
I know.
Um,
Sorry.
oh no, it's all good. Trust
I'm
me.
jo
Ask James. I make every podcast about aces. Okay, so
mm.
we do that. It's all good. But we want to talk about Nike launching Sabrina One's shoe. The Sabrina One just launched, and love to get kind of your feel. You've been watching her the whole season, her
Mhm.
personality. How important is it for young girls to see a woman I mean, even a global figure? Because growing up in Romania, being here to see someone become as great as she has become and get their own signature shoe.
I think it's so important. I mean, growing up playing basketball, like I've been playing since I was 4, and I never felt that I had any exposure to the league full stop, really to professional women's basketball. But I knew about
Mm,
the NBA, I knew all the NBA players, and I knew all of their signature shoes and their Kobe's and your Steph Curry's and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't till, like, a few years ago that I realized, like, Elena Deladon, for example, has her own shoe,
yes.
and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." My initial thought was, she's the only female player that has a signature shoe. I was
Oh,
completely wrong because there are so
oh,
many, but it's just not felt that it's been very available, it's not been super marketed. Um, and now with the way that Nike have gone about marketing this Sabrina shoe, I think it's really just amazing and just such a step forward in the promotion of women's basketball. Um, you see, like, they've dedicated so much time, so much space to it, and for young children, not only to be able to rep and like represent their favorite players' shoes or their favorite player's jersey, but to be able to see that being marketed on their social media pages, or to see her as the new cover athlete for NBA 2K, all that, everything kind of ties in together. And I think the way that it has worked out is meant, like, Sabrina Shu has been a big name this year. I've had so many people talking to me about it. I have my own pair. I bought them as soon as the day they came out. I was like, I'm getting those. I want those. And they're amazing. They're really, really good shoes. So I would, for any keen basketballers out there, I would recommend. But I think it is just so important because, I mean, women's basketball has been on the up. in recent years, especially with all these new opportunities they're getting for their signature shoes, their WNBA cover athletes, all that. Um, and it's so, so, so important, me being a young girl, and I'm sure that you had the same experience where I didn't have any idea about professional women's basketball until I started seeing more of this, people breaking records, your Sue Birds, your Deladons getting their shoes, Sabrina now with her shoe, which has been such a huge hit. It's so, so, so important for young girls and young boys alike to see that sort of stuff. I've had some really nice conversations recently with some of my male friends who have been curious about the podcast. They've been curious, asking things about Sabrina, saying that she broke that 3-point record, beating Stephen Curry. And
Yes.
it was after that when I shared it on my story that it was like all these guys were suddenly like, "Oh, wait, this is really cool. Like this girl, she can play basketball." And I'm just like, "Yeah." And to have those conversations and to have males as well as females
Yes.
realize like women's basketball is where it's at. Like it's so competitive. We have some amazing talent in the league, and just because it's not men playing basketball doesn't mean you can't watch it, doesn't mean you can't wear her shoe, doesn't mean anything. I mean, she's beating your NBA players, your Stephen Curry's on so many levels, and I think just the entire season it's fit so nicely with the shoe launch to bring so much more attention to the WNBA.
I think it's amazing. You made me think about it. I was like, is she gonna be in the next CarMax commercial with Stephen? Is she gonna be- That's gonna be interesting, to have the shootout
Mhm.
and everything between those two players since they love to team up the
Yeah.
WNBA and NBA players. Amazing. I think what she's done to get to where she is, absolutely amazing. I thought it was really interesting to understand how much she knew about designing and making shoes as well.
Mhm.
Understanding from a player standpoint, you want something light, comfortable, that you can move and cut and get low in that won't, rip or tear up. It has to be put together and be durable. And for her to come in and start talking with the designers and doing things that you typically don't hear players request until they've had a few shoes drop and they learn the process. It was impressive to see that she had done her homework, understood what the shoe meant, but brought the elements from a women's side of the game
Mhm.
of, hey, it needs to be lightweight. We don't want ACL injuries, which typically happen when you put a female in a male shoe that's too wide, too heavy.
Mhm.
And I think she's also going to change the way shoes are made and how people think about walking into their signature lines. We got Asia getting ready to come out with her shoe. We got people asking for the Cheryl Swoops, the first original Nike women's basketball shoe from the WNBA, to come back out. And I think all of these things will allow our young men and women to see that anything is possible and that the women's game is just as good and, like you said, sometimes better than one of the best 3-point shooters in NBA history.
Mhm. You're totally right, and I mean, I'm a bit of a shoe geek, I won't lie, and I love trying out my shoes. So I have worn the Sabrinas, and the greatest thing to me about the shoe, which makes it such an important shoe, is the fact that it's unisex. It's not
Yeah.
a women's shoe. It's not a men's shoe. The sizing is unisex. Everything is catered towards inclusivity, and I think that is another thing that is just so important. And even working like I work at Nike and I sell basketball shoes. And even sometimes, we'll get male customers that come in, and the second you tell them that it's a woman's silhouette of a Jordan 1, like it can be all white, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not sure I want that." So I think the way that they've marketed it is so important, and the way that they've created the shoe is so important to expand that inclusivity. And it's a really great shoe. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm so chuffed with my pair. So there's my little hyping up Sabrina ones for you guys.
And it's simple, it's elegant, the gold
Mm,
features, everything that they've done with the shoe, in its simplicity, I think it's super wearable for any and
mm,
everyone. And the unisex, it makes it where someone comes in, everyone gets to look at this shoe and want it and be like, okay, I can rock
mhm,
this with so many different outfits. and
Yeah.
still show love and, kind of, for me, play into that whole, "Hey, let's see something with the 2 of them, her and Steph, going back and forth."
Mhm.
I wanna see it. I
I
wanna see
wanna
it.
see
I'm
it. I
throwing
wanna
it out
see it.
there. I
I
wanna see
think
them. I wanna see the CarMax commercial, all of it.
yeah, I think, Curry tweeted at her and was saying that, "Oh, we need to link up, we need to do something." So I'm excited to see what they've got coming up.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Now we're gonna move it over to the Chicago Sky. We know every team in the league is doing a lot of things. Chicago coming off of a championship as well a couple of years back. Great coaching there as well. They're going to do something different, and I think it's really dope. But they're hosting the very first Marvel Superhero Day against the New York Liberty. Ooh.
Mhm.
And they're going to have heroes on and off the court. The first 3,000 fans are going to get a custom Marvel toy when they come through the doors. That's obviously going to become a collectible easily. But what do you think about the engagement that it brings to one of the biggest games for Chicago this season, coming
Mhm.
in and hosting New York?
I think it's really important and it's a really smart idea,
Yeah.
the fact that they've gone with this. You think of, dedicated fan bases and you think superhero, comics, Marvel, all that, and sports fans. They're the 2 most dedicated fan bases, so I think to combine them together to create this kind of promotional we have our WNBA and, oh, we're affiliated in this game with Marvel. I think it's a really, really smart move and will definitely allow our women's sport, our WNBA, to expand into more kind of dedicated fan bases because there's so many comic fans, so many superhero fans who will be into sport as well. And to see, their favorite brand combining with women's sport, I can only imagine that it's gonna lead to a lot of media attention and a lot more attention and interest in specifically this Chicago Sky game, but hopefully women's basketball in general.
Very true. I think you hit it on the head earlier when you talked about how the marketing has improved, and in many ways may have bypassed the NBA, just
Mhm.
because some of it is very tailored to the
Mhm.
players, but also to the trends of today. I
Yeah.
notice sometimes we go with older trends and OG stories and things like that, but I think where Chicago and even the WNBA as a whole, when I looked at like the pamphlets and the brochures that were going out and all the stuff that they have on the internet around this game, I was shocked. I was actually shocked. And I was like, dang, they really put a ton of effort into this. But also the way they integrated the women's game into it, having them in the costumes and on the posters and showing like the collectible that you'll get at the game. Whether I was a young man or a young woman, I would want to be at that game. Even if it was just to get the collectible and then you're still learning about the sport. I think the marketing has come a long way for the WNBA, from where it, especially from where it started in the beginning. Do you see any anything in New York? Because you guys are a big media market anyway. And New York is the biggest media market, I believe, in the US. But how marketing has changed, even around, like you said, Sabrina Shoe and the partnerships and the different things that
Mhm.
are coming. Do you see that transitioning across the entire WNBA in some like small ways, but I think will become bigger waves?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I know my WNBA experience this year has been very much like 90% focused on New York. But I know in terms of marketing, there's been a lot of push for these like themed games that they're doing. I know like New York have done loads. We had like the sneaker theme game,
Mhm.
and there's so many. It's so cool to see because you make this big hype, and you're like, okay, so today it's the sneaker game, and everyone's gonna come in, and you just see the camera pans the court side, and there's some like amazing shoes that these people are kicking about in, and it's just such a great way to engage the fan base and to make people be like, "I wanna get a ticket to that game. If I'm gonna go to a game, I'm gonna go to that game because I want to show off my shoes and I want to watch basketball." Like, 2 things that come hand in hand, shoes and basketball. Um, it's so cool to see that they're doing loads of promotions like that, and even the way that the teams are with like their social media. I think the social media alone has stepped up so much as well. We have for again for the Liberty, they've started a new like YouTube series which is the Liberty Unlocked. And it's really cool because you get to see it behind the scenes of a lot of, the different aspects of being part of a team. They had like the trials at the start of the season. They've had player spotlights like on Bit Nigellini was their most recent one. They had one on Marine Johannes. And it's a really great way to make fans feel closer to the team and make them feel more dedicated towards showing up, watching the games, supporting it and everything. And even in terms of like if you look at the WNBA website, they've got all these different like I watched recently the one with Aja Wilson. It's like MVP with the little apostrophe. It was just so interesting and so great to have access to that sort of thing right on the face of the website, where you can just go on, you can get behind the scenes of all that's going on in the league, and I think that's just like one of the key things to making your fans feel closer to the sport is to give them a bit of behind the scenes access because it just makes you feel like you're part of it. And I really, really love the push that a lot of the teams and the WNBA have made towards that this year.
You're right. You're absolutely right. The media coverage is essential. Like you
Mhm.
said, it when the player can come and they're young and they're trying to figure out, okay, maybe I can't call an Asia Wilson or a Sabrina on the phone, but I can go behind the scenes and see and learn. Even the story about Jewell Lloyd and her dyslexia and other
Mhm.
players who are struggling with the same thing, to be able to go and find someone that they can resonate with and just get to know them better, understand what they're doing, figure out what sneakers and shoes they're rocking. Um, all those fun things, the Marvel comics and the different things that relate to sport that we don't necessarily always talk about together that haven't always gotten the media attention across the WNBA. I think those are going to help the game continue to grow and get better viewership. And I also had to ask you a question. We got Chicago Sky hosting the Marvel Hero Day. Do they beat the Liberty? Are they going to be superheroes for a day?
Um,
Who wins that game? And I would love to know why, because maybe it's they can't match up at this position or can they stop the three-point shooting? I love to kind of know why.
I, th- I don't see it. Liberty have been on a really, really good run
Yeah.
lately, and I think that that's really my answer for you. Liberty have just been on fire. They've found their chemistry. They all understand their roles on the team, and they're just playing very, very fluid basketball right now and are performing in all cylinders. Chicago Sky are also a great team. They're this is the killer. Chicago Sky play incredibly fast-paced basketball.
Mhm.
New York Liberty don't always play the fastest pace, and it's all very tactical, very much, Vandersloot is cool as a cucumber. She slows it down, she facilitates, but that's not always an advantage.
Mhm.
And I think that where a team like Chicago, and we've seen it against the Sun, we've seen it against the Dream as well. The Dream is a team I love watching New York play against. When they play their fast pace that they're known for, it can sometimes upset the fluidity of the Liberty and the Liberty's defense. And sometimes it takes a while to recover. We get players who get frustrated. And specifically in that third quarter, I've spoken so much about the third quarter. Um, we seem to have something against it, and that will be the key for the game. Is
Okay.
will we still have the energy to keep up with the pace of the Chicago Sky in that third quarter? Um, so I think that will be the killer. Is they're such a fast team.
Yes.
Will we be able to keep up with their pace and keep our defense connected and our communication on point? Because that can be the real killer for us.
I agree. I was gonna say that is Chicago's strength, is their transition game. that wears you out over time.
Mhm.
At the same time, I think New York's strength is you're gonna have to space the floor out and play everyone one-on-one. You better have great defense at every position, and if you don't, we're gonna wear you out from the three-point line.
Mhm.
And those threes over time, more
Yeah.
points. So I think it'll be a good game, but I had to ask who you thought would win. I do still think the Liberty will pull it out, but it'll be interesting to kind of see how they go. And now I'm going to pay even more attention to that third quarter.
Mhm.
So make sure you
Yeah.
guys tune in. That's going to be a great game, well coached team, and we're going to see if Chicago does pull out a superhero win. The next topic up is one of the younger players in the league, absolute amazing athlete, but I would love to hear you talk about Aliyah Boston and how she's come from South Carolina, transitioned in with the Indiana Fever. And it almost seems like she hit her stride right away, but I feel like now she's kind of taking a whole nother stride and
Mhm.
taking her game to another level. She's already a national championship in college. She went to the Dream, which we just talked about them against New York, and showed out in that game as well. She's playing some phenomenal basketball, and I'm really beginning to compare her to like Jonquel Jones and other big name players. Who can stop this kid? Because I don't know if anyone can. I'm being and with her being so young, that's scary.
Yeah, that is exactly hit the nail on the head there. Me and Stacia had an episode a while back where we spoke a lot about Aaliyah Boston. It turned from the Liberty podcast to actually just bigging up Aaliyah for the whole episode. But yeah, the way that she's just come into the league, being such, she was a big name player in
Yes,
college, and um that year I think her kind of the hype around her as well in that league brought a lot more media attention to women's college basketball.
yes.
So to see her come from this league, and you see this happen quite often where college players come in and they take their time to find their footing, as is expected because it's the highest level of women's basketball. But the scary thing about Aliyah Boston is that she just came into the league like no sweat. She just came out and she was killing it, and she still like that's what I can't get over. She is just so young. She's come straight off college and is absolutely dominating. She's dominating. Like she has been a force of nature this season. And she's eighth in rebounds per game. She's first in offensive rebounds, which is very impressive. And also eighth in blocks per game. She is just such a key player for our team as well, and it's been really exciting to watch her play the way that she kind of keeps the composure on the court very level. And it's just the chemistry on the team as well. That's something that really stood out to me is they've just come in, fairly very young roster. And Aaliyah Boston, she has been leading that team essentially. Like, she's been such a role player, and I'm just so impressed, and I'm so happy for her that she's managed to come out and just get better. How is that even possible than how she was in college? Yeah, she's been quite something.
Agree with everything you said. She was a monster in college. Even seeing her going ahead and taking that leap and going into the WNBA after feeling as though, like, at this point, the refs are now playing defense against you too
Hmm,
because you're so
yeah,
unstoppable. To have Don Staley say, "Hey, I'd love to have you for another year, but honestly, you need to go.
yeah.
It's your time. You got to go to the league." And yes, we expected her to transition. Comes in as the number one pick in 2023. I think she stepped into an Indiana team that was almost like the New York Liberty in many senses. I thought they would take 5 years to get to where they wanted to be and they would have to rebuild. She has taken this team and put them on the cusp of doing so many things with that. She's a forward center that is agile. She can move. She's 6'5", 220 and can move her feet. So she's also solid. And like you said, the way she plays on both ends of the floor. She's been Defensive Player of the Year in college as well as the all-time leading scorer. She plays on both sides of the ball. And I think she's one of those people that makes a team a lot better. Now, one of the the absolute all-time Indiana Fever greats is Tamika Catchings, who was known for playing on both ends of the floor. Now you're seeing that from the post position, and Boston is just killing. And she's
Mhm.
doing things that we typically wouldn't see most post players do. And she's not taking her time about it either. I think she's going to be a great player to watch. I think Indiana's on the cusp of doing some great things if they can find a few more pieces to put around her. Maybe take steal something from the Sandy Brondello book
Mhm.
playbook on getting some off-season players, pulling a coup. You know that's what we call New York this year. We say y'all pulled a coup and stole three of the top players because I mean, you really don't see like Courtney Vandersloot, Brown Stewart, like all these players coming to one key
Yeah.
market and doing what they've done. It is like a coup, and I got to give her credit for it. But I think a lot of teams are going to steal from that playbook. And if
Mhm.
Indiana does that, Aliyah Boston's going to create a team and an atmosphere that's going to be deadly as well. And I think the playing field of the WNBA is doing like this. It's just leveling out,
Yeah.
and everyone's learning from each other.
Mhm.
So I think she's a player to watch. Really want to see what she does. If you had to think of the one way you think she will affect the game of basketball the most, what would it be?
Ooh, that is a really great question. I think one thing I think of when I think of Leah Copper, Leah Boston, sorry, is she's just such a positive person. She's such a great energy. And I think she brings a very light I mean, the league's amazing. She
Mhm.
brings this very light-hearted kind of special aspect to the league and to the way that she plays, while at the same time being terrifyingly good at basketball, terrifying on both ends of the court, and just I think it's in recent years, the way that basketball has been moving is more towards these small guards who shoot threes and, do all the ball handling, all this sort of stuff. So I think to have our, well, dare I say, rookie of the year
Yeah.
top candidate, um, being a post player, it's really exciting to kinda see that swing come back around and see that the way that the league is setting itself up for the next few years is gonna be very much dominated by a post player, and one of our biggest superstars of the league in the next few years is a post player, and I think that's really exciting to get that balance back because there's a lot of talk about, Sabrina Ionescu and Sue Bird and all these more guard position players, and it's just I think it's nice, give some more spotlight back to the post players and show them that, you can adapt the game, but I'm still here. I'm still doing the fundamentals absolutely right, and I'm still dominating. So, bring it on.
I agree. I think, like you said, her personality.
Mhm.
Usually, when you see a player as good as her on both ends of the floor, they have that intense look, like they're
Yeah.
tuned in all the time. And we're not saying she doesn't have it. She just does it with a smile and the
Yeah.
energy. Like you said, it's lighthearted. It's almost like
Mhm.
I'm just out here having fun,
She's just
and
having
I'm
fun.
still gonna dominate you. You know, I think that's what she brings to the game that young kids are gonna be able to see and be like, she's just having the time of her life out there.
Yeah.
She's working her butt off, and she's still gonna beat you. But
Yeah.
she just with a smile, I think her personality is gonna make her easy to market in the league and for
Mhm.
other people to kinda get to know her and her game. So
Yeah.
that was this week's player spotlight. Aaliyah Boston doing great things. Like you said, you got Sue Bird and Ionescu on one side of the field. Then you got Asia and Boston on the other side, who are going to kind of level it out and be like, you need
Mhm.
every position, and this is why. And it makes
Yeah.
it fun conversations across the league. Now, y'all all know that I'm biased. I'm an Aces fan through and through. But today we're going to spotlight another team and we want to talk about the New York Liberty because I don't know if y'all know this. I'm sure you do. They are throwing in my behind this year. They have been an amazing team to watch. Pulled off the greatest coup of all time,
Yep.
brought in some of the best players. But one of the things we want to end on today is I want, you cover them all year, 90% of the year. This team has created not just the best starting 5 across the league that play really, really well, and they're giving everyone a run for their money. They're running through the league a lot faster than any of us thought they would. But let's talk about the other piece that I believe is the actual reason they're winning. I think they have one of the best benches in the WNBA.
Mhm. Yeah, I like, absolutely no doubt about that. That's been such a key for our progression this season as well. Like, you can have a star-studded starting 5 like what we
Mhm.
have, but what happens when one player is injured? What happens when one player needs a rest? What happens when someone has a bad game? Because
Yeah.
it happens. They're all human, believe it or not, and they have a bad game from time to time. The most, like, biggest key to our team's success this year has been their ability to rely on the bench to step in. Now, I'm gonna give a shout out to my personal favorite, Maureen Johannes,
I
the
knew it.
Wizard.
I
She
knew it.
oh, she is the epitome of European basketball, and I love to watch some European basketball, you know, a little bit of swagger, all the behind the backs, the shooting off one leg, the speed of the release on her shot.
Yeah.
It's been such a key to our team, and we've had Dolson, who's been such a great, given she's been injured for a while, which has kind of thrown a spanner in the works, but in that time, Jonquil has performed exceptionally. But we have someone as reliable as Big Mama Steph to come in and play that center position, get those boards. She's incredible at setting her screens and also just facilitating as a big. We have the tenacious Kayla Thornton, who is just a force to be reckoned with. She is one of my favorite defensive players in this league, along with Betnija. The way that she comes on, and a lot of these bench players, you know, they don't necessarily have all the stats on paper that show that they're as great players as they are. But when you watch the game and you see a player like Kayla Thornton and how she plays defense
Yeah.
and just her intelligence on the court, you're thinking like, why is she not in the starting five? Like, and then of course you're like, oh, I mean, you know, the team's insane as it is, but it's been such a key for us to be able to rely on these kind of players to come in, make their minutes, play their defense, play their role, and just bring such a great energy to the team. I mean, even with like Han Shu when she comes on, she's one of the fan favorites. The second she's standing on that sideline, the crowd riles up and they're chanting Han Shu. Like, it's been such a key for our team this season, and even with, we've had multiple games where our leading scorers have been bench players, and that is crazy to say when you have a starting 5 like we have. Just the depth of the bench and the ability to rely on them to come in and in no way depreciate the skill level of what has been shown from the starters is just an amazing feat for them to have achieved.
100, hats off, agree. Is that the key to them winning this year? Could that be one of the
Yes.
keys to them
I
winning?
I think I think there there are 2 keys, of course.
Mhm.
You need to ultimately be able to rely on your star players to perform, of course, like, that's the expectation. But like I said, you can't expect that they're gonna come on every single game, that they're gonna be healthy every single game. You need to have players, you need to have a 6th man, you need to have a 7th, 8th man, you need to have a bench that's reliable to come and fill in, and I think that reliability on your bench, to some extent, overweighs all the pressure that you put on your starting 5, because we have 5 incredible starters, um, and it's great that we're able to share, you know, share the rock, as you'd call it, and not have to put all the pressure on them to perform every single game. Um, 100%. I think the key for us is to not only keep the team healthy, but keep the bench healthy, because they are so vital to our defensive progress, to our offensive progress when we need people to fill in, or it's just so important. And as you're coming into this part of the season where you're talking playoffs, you're talking intense game schedules, um, and for example, we've needed to rest some players recently
Mhm.
to come into these last minutes, and we put our bench players on, and it's like nothing changes. It's so 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 important to have the ability to do that for everyone's benefit on the team.
100. Thank you for sharing that. This
Of
has
course.
been an amazing podcast, as always. Glad to have you as a guest anytime.
Thank
But
you.
I want to know, is there anything you want to wrap up with before we close out with the fans?
Ugh, anything I wanna wrap up with? I have no burning, things I wanna say. I'm very inclined to promote the liberty, but me and Stacia have been very, playing very tactically, where we don't want to hype up the liberty too much, talk too much trash, and then end up, you know, counting our chickens before they hatch. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. It's been a
Okay.
great season. New York have had some great games against the Aces.
They've had
Um,
some amazing
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Hey, I
and
have to give credit where it's due. They played
yep,
amazing basketball, and to be
mhm,
honest, they've come to where I thought they would be in another 2 years
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Because I played with Sandy Brondello. I think she's an amazing coach. I know how intelligent she is and how much time and effort she puts into teams. So we knew it was
mhm,
coming. It just
mhm,
kinda slapped us a little sooner than we were
yeah,
expecting. So, we gotta adjust a little bit. I also think for the fans, that's what makes basketball fun. Like, there's so
mhm,
many different intangibles that you don't think about, and I thought you brought up a lot of them: mental health, injuries,
mhm,
resting players, also making sure people know their roles and they stay within those roles so that the team functions at its best at all times. And I think New York right now, they are showing how to do that and laying the blueprint for that. So you have to give credit where it's due.
mhm.
At the same time, I'm still biased. Uh, I'm still biased, but I
Yeah, of
can
course.
there's no way you can play for Sandy Brondello and not root for her,
Yeah.
but she still came through the Aces franchise, so technically,
Yeah,
she's family.
yeah, you know.
Technically, she's still
Um,
family. And
yeah.
you wanna see her do well, and honestly, with New York being in one of the biggest media markets, we
Mhm.
need them to do well for the league
Yeah.
overall as a whole. So, definitely, we're gonna continue to show them love.
Mhm.
Boston, we don't care if she's in Indiana, John Coy like, it doesn't matter. I think
Yeah.
great players and great teams should get this attention, and this is our platform to do that.
Mhm.
So
Exactly, exactly.
we're going to keep that up. But for now, guys, we want to thank you for tuning in to the WNBA Across the Pond Sports Podcast. We will see you next week. We want to thank our guest, Kristin, for coming in at this
Yeah.
time. She still stayed up for this podcast. Lots of love for that. Appreciate you. And that's all for today.